Hello, and welcome to my April 2014 reading wrap-up. April was a great reading month for me. I finished 12 books and would love to tell you all about them. The first book that I finished was a new adult romance. That is not something I read a ton of, but I do occasionally pick one up, and that's what I felt like reading at the beginning of the month. So I picked up Arson, A Broken Love Story by Mia Asher, and this story was about a married woman who is happily married and yet has an affair. So I was intrigued as to why that would happen. This book dealt with the topic of infertility and how that can affect a relationship, and I think that is a very relevant topic for today. One of the things I really enjoyed about this story was the fact that of the three main characters, the wife, the husband, and the boyfriend, you go back and forth between loving and hating them all. And just when you think you've settled your mind, the author just does something to change that, and I thought that was a fabulous aspect of this book. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. The second book that I finished in April was Champion by Marie Lu, which of course is the third and final book in the trilogy. I love this series. I especially loved the comparison of the different governments to each other. I thought that was fascinating, and in Champion, you learn how the Society for Antarctica is set up, and I thought that was just a brilliant idea. I'd never heard of anything like that. Thought that was great. As far as following June and Day and their stories, the writing was beautiful, the pacing was wonderful. This story was a little bleaker than the others, but that was to be expected with the cliffhanger that we had at the end of Prodigy, and I had heard a lot of talk about the ending, people loving and hating it, and at first I didn't know what to think, and the more I thought about it, that was the perfect ending to this trilogy, and that's exactly the way it should have been written. So, bravo, I gave this 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. The third book that I read in April was The Running Dream by Wendelin Van Dranen, a very touching story about a high school track star who is on the bus with the track team on the way back from a track meet when the bus is in an accident. One student loses her life, and Jessica, the main character, loses one of her legs from just below the knee. And this is a wonderful story of her struggles and her strength as she comes to terms with going from someone who is a runner. I identify myself as a runner, so that was very touching to me, to someone who can't even walk on her own. And the banter in the book was touching and cute, and this has everything you would want in a story, even just a tiny bit of little kissy kiss romance at the end. And I just thought this book was fabulous. It did get me back into running. I had been in a little bit of a slump, but it was just the thing to kick me into gear. I do want to read you a quote from the book that I loved. Either people like running or they don't. If they don't, they think people who like it are crazy, which is okay. That makes us even. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. The fourth book that I read in April was Angel Fall by Susan E. I got this on Kindle Daily Deals. I really thought this was going to be kind of a flimsy angel human YA romance, but I was pleasantly surprised by all of the action, the suspense, the world building, the character development, and even politics that were part of this book. I loved almost all of the characters in this book. You really got to be able to relate to them very well. I did end up giving this 4 out of 5 stars because I felt like the ending was just a little too rushed. But other than that, really good, and I can't wait to read the next book, which is World After. The fifth book that I read in April was We Are the Goldens by Dana Reinhardt. This was an advanced reader's copy I got from NetGalley. Thank you very much. The story follows 2 sisters who are really close in age and have a super close relationship. And when they get to high school, the youngest one, she finds out that her sister is having an affair with a teacher. And so the story follows how their relationship is affected by this and how their lives are affected by this. And this book was so well done. I was so pleasantly surprised. My favorite character was the younger sister's crazy best friend named Felix. The way that relationship played out was just beautiful. The way the sisters' relationship is described and written is also beautiful. I love that the parents were responsible and caring and yet weren't perfect. And I ended up giving this book 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. The sixth book that I read in April was Maybe Someday by Colleen Hoover. This is a romance for adults, and the story follows Sydney, who is in the midst of a bad breakup. She finds out that her best friend and her boyfriend have been having an affair behind her back since before they even knew her, actually. So that kind of rocks her world. Insert mysterious guitar playing neighbor who she ends up writing songs with, and you have a love triangle on your hands. Not probably the one you're thinking of, though. You'll have to read to figure out what the love triangle is. But the fact that the songs that they're writing are on the soundtrack and you can listen to them while you are reading about them, I thought was just a very nice touch. That actually did not turn out to be my favorite thing about this novel, which I was shocked. My favorite part about this novel is Ridge, the mysterious guitar player, is deaf. And his inability to hear added such depth to the story that I was just blown away by it. So just it led to a wonderful exploration of communication in all forms. And this is a love triangle done right. I loved this. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. One of my favorite books of the year so far. The 7th book that I read in April was Better Off Friends by Elizabeth Eulberg. I picked this up because it was recommended because I had read Dairy Queen and loved it. And it was a very cute story about a young man and a young woman who meet in junior high and become best friends. And they both love this geeky television show, and they quote from it, and their banter was so cute and so adorable, and you just loved both of them and all of their friends, and just a well-written story. Very, very cute and light, and I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars simply because I felt like the ending was drug out just a little too long, but other than that, a fabulous read. The 8th book that I read in April was a story that I got to read out loud to my 5th grade homeroom, which is a rare treat for a math and science teacher to get to do. They took a vote and voted on Shooting the Moon by Frances O'Rourke Dowell, which is about Jamie, who is 12, almost 13, she will tell you. And her father is a very gung-ho Army colonel, and she has an older brother who is headed off to the Vietnam War, and she is very excited. And she is somewhat surprised by her family's reaction to her brother going off to war. And when he gets to Vietnam, instead of writing her letters, he sends her film, some of which include pictures of the moon, hence the name Shooting the Moon. And this was a very thought-provoking, very sparsely written novel, which means kids didn't quite enjoy it as much as I was hoping, but they did find a lot of meaning in it. So I gave this 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. The 9th novel that I read in April was Vicious by V.E. Schwab. It had gotten a lot of buzz on BookTube lately, and so I was interested in it. It had a lot of suspense and a lot of intrigue, and there were just so many possible directions the author could have taken this book, and I just couldn't wait to read more and figure out in which direction it was finally going to go. I love the aspect of the book where it got a little Slim Shady on us, where it was, will the real antagonist please stand up? Please stand up. It was hard to tell who were the good guys, who were the bad guys, and I loved that about this book. So I did give this 4 out of 5 stars simply because I felt like the ending was just a little too neat and tiny with a little bow on it. So, but overall, a great book, and if there is a sequel, I will definitely be looking for it. The 10th book that I read in April was Stupid by Kim Firmston. This was an advanced e-copy of the book that I got through NetGalley. And the book comes out September 1st, I believe, this year. So I was happy to get to read it before everyone else. Ha ha, aren't you jealous? Just kidding. This story follows Martin, who is a high school student who has dyslexia but does not realize it. And he struggles academically, and that affects his relationship with his father. And so they don't get along so great. But Martin is very into filmmaking, and he runs into this character, his own age, named Stick. And Stick is into parkour, which is free running, which involves a lot of stunts. And they talk Martin into filming for Stick's parkour group, and the descriptions of that are just amazing in this book. Another thing that I really loved about this book was Stick's philosophy in life is that if you practice parkour, you're learning to get over obstacles with no fear, and that helps you to do the same in your real life. So I thought that really added a very nice element to this story. I did end up giving it 4 out of 5 stars simply because I had trouble believing that his dyslexia would have been misdiagnosed or undiagnosed for so long. So other than that, fabulous read, 4 out of 5 stars. The 11th novel that I finished in April was Evidence of Things Not Seen by Lindsay Lane. This also was an e-copy sent to me as an advanced copy from NetGalley, and I am so glad I decided to pick this up. This follows Tommy, who is a high school student who has Asperger's syndrome, which means that he obsesses on some topics and is not so clued into the social rules of the environment around him, and he goes missing. So he actually does not actually appear in the story itself. The story is told through the police interviewing some residents of the town and people who knew Tommy, and I thought it was fascinating that those stories were all one-sided. You never see any dialogue from the investigators. It's always from the people being interviewed only and their responses to them. So I thought that was a neat style of writing. Also, there are other chapters that are third-person chapters that address people finding items that belonged to Tommy. So things like his motorcycle or goggles that he might have worn. Because Tommy has Asperger's, he has obsessed on particle physics. And there is a lot of science in this book, which the nerd in me just really loved. And it really gets into things like parallel universes and the origin of the universe and all kinds of crazy theories about how that could happen. And it really provided a broad spectrum of those theories. So I thought that was a really neat touch to the book too. I was surprised at Lindsay Lane's writing. I was so invested in some of her characters after one chapter. I just couldn't believe it. Sometimes I'm not that invested after an entire trilogy of characters. So hats off to her for her ability to get right to the heart of a character and make you just feel like you know them. Another thing that took me by surprise with this book was the mature content of this book. So this is definitely for grown-ups only. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. You're shocked, aren't you? The 12th novel that I finished in April was Shatter Me by Tahira Mafi. Okay, I'm lying just a little bit, but I am filming this on the 29th, so I still have a little time left in April, and I'm at 92%, so I'm almost there. But I don't love this book, and I don't even really like this book, and I hate to say that because it has gotten so much buzz on BookTube, and I just couldn't really like it. It is so bleak, and it is so leaves you feeling so helpless, and Juliet is just whiny. I'm sorry. The 2 bright spots in this book for me were Kenji and James, and of course they weren't main characters. I do love Adam's devotion. That is very appealing, but I kind of have heard some stuff already on BookTube that makes me know that he kind of becomes a little bit wimpier later, and that makes me sad. And the poetic writing is just not really for me. I do like the strike-throughs in the writing. I do think that is fabulous for what she's thinking and not saying, or wants to say, or wants to think. I do enjoy that aspect of the book quite a bit, but I don't know, it's just a little too descriptive and a little too character-driven for me. They have just gotten to the Omega project, and that does seem a little bit promising for the next book. I am going to go ahead and pick up the next book because so many people on BookTube have said that this second book is so much better. So I will still give it a shot. I'm not giving up, but I'm sorry I could only give this 3 out of 5. And so there you have it. That is my April 2014 reading wrap-up. I welcome any comments below, especially if you were inspired to check out or pick up a book that you had not previously considered. So happy reading.